As Warren Buffett said, trust is like the air we breathe. When it's present, nobody really notices. When it's absent, everybody notices. Hello and welcome to Growing Through It, your go-to podcast for real leadership stories. I'm your host, Jen Arnold. In every episode, you'll hear straight talk from leaders who face their own challenges. We'll dive into those whoops moments and the insights that followed. This podcast is about the lessons that refine us, shared to help you confidently lead in your own style. Whether you're looking to steer your team towards success or just seeking a spark of inspiration, you're in the right place. Let's grow through it together. Hi there, I'm Jen Arnold, and welcome to the Growing Through It podcast. In this solo episode, I decided to do something a little different. You may not know this, but I am a trainer and a facilitator and have a team of trainers and facilitators that teach on various leadership topics in many industries across the U.S. And I thought it may be helpful to go through some of the content of the trainings I have to bring you a little bit of a new skill, a new behavior, or maybe just fine-tuning what you're already doing with your leadership. Now, trust is what I want to talk about first, because if you don't have trust, so as a leader, if you don't have trust with your team, everybody notices. And trust also, I would say, is not a sexy thing to talk about. No one wants to talk about trust. We just want to go forward to all the other skills. But all the other skills that we teach really don't matter if there's not trust there, right? If it's not there, then we know it's not there. And the data proves it. Let me give you a couple stats. Employees who trust their leaders are 61% more likely to stay with their company and not look for another job. It's a Gallup stat. And people at high trust companies report 106% more energy at work, 50% higher productivity, 76% more engagement, and 40% less burnout than people at low trust companies. And that's a Harvard Business Review stat. So think about that. Think about the energy it takes when you don't trust someone. So I want you to think about that. Think about someone at work who you completely trust at your current or your past workplace. And how do you describe that relationship? So what are some words or some descriptors you would put in that with that person? And then how does that impact the work? Your work, their work, how you work together maybe. So if you need to, just go ahead and pause and think about someone that you really trust. Now, on the flip side, I want you to think about someone you don't trust at your current workplace or your past workplace. And how would you describe that relationship? And in turn, how does that impact your work? So I'll tell you a quick story. Feel free to pause it while you're thinking of that person. But I used to work with somebody who was a peer, and we worked together on the same team. We had a great collaborative relationship. We were client-facing, so a lot of times we'd go out to clients together. So when you're riding in cars with people, you spend a lot of time with them. You get to know them. You get to trust them. You get to know about their personal lives, right? So I trusted that person. And then a few years later, I went to another department to where I was the client and then she was the consultant. I hope this isn't confusing, but I'm trying not to call anyone out here. We were all in the same company, but she was the consultant to our group. And I remember being in a meeting. It was in this big fancy room. The big boss was there on my end, and there were multiple people from different departments in the room. And as we're going over the report, and as this person's presenting, all of a sudden, we get called out for not using one of the products. All right, so it was a free product, and we should have been using it, except according to her. And it was a subtle, not so subtle, throw under the bus. And we couldn't really recover from it, because the truth be told, the product was crap. We weren't using it because it was crap. And we couldn't say that in the meeting. So we just kind of, tucked our tail between our legs and said, okay, yeah, sure. We'll really consider that. We did all the PCBS that you have to do. But after that, my trust was completely broken. Right. So I used to, talk highly of her. There would be a lot of collaboration. There was trust there. But after that, it kind of showed her cards and what she was willing to do to make herself look better and us maybe not so good. So after that, let's just say the collaborative working relationship was not there. She was not pulled in on different projects that I would otherwise have pulled her in on. And it matters, right? When someone breaks your trust like that and she didn't apologize, and I actually, in retrospect, should have confronted the situation. I think if the same thing happened today, I would have said, hey, not cool. Why'd you do that? Like, that really broke trust. I wish I would have been the one to address it. I didn't. She definitely did not address it. I don't even know if she realized she did anything wrong. But there are some signs as a leader. So that was a peer situation. But I've had these, and I've had some leadership stories and leadership experiences where I didn't build trust. Like I went in there like a bull in a china shop and just went and got to work. And there are signs as a leader you can look to when trust isn't present. So if your team stops bringing you their feedback and concerns, like maybe they once did, but all of a sudden they've stopped, or you ask for their input and there's just silence. You get like a radio silence, no one's saying a damn word to you. No one's sharing new ideas. You come into the room and they stop talking. Kind of feels like you're on like a Survivor or something. They're going to vote you out. It feels weird. Or this is one that actually happens a lot in organizations I work with. You hear about problems within your team from people outside your team. So someone else, whether it's a peer or it's someone from another team who says, hey, did you know so-and-so is doing this? And you're like, I didn't. No one came to me with that. So those are some signs. And then there's also different types of trust. There's the cognitive-based trust, where people believe you have the right knowledge, the right skills, the competency piece, which I'll talk about in my model in a minute. And just knowing that people are going to act in a predictable and reliable manner, that's cognitive-based trust. But there's also this affective-based trust that you just like a person. Like there's something relational about them. There's something emotional. You just have a good feeling about that person, that you basically trust them because you like them. So you think about whether you lean more towards cognitive or affective. The person that you really trust a lot in your organization, is it cognitive-based trust? Is it affective-based trust? And that the person you didn't trust, what form of trust was broken? Mine was affective-based for the person I was telling you about. Like she's still completely competent. She's overly competent, but she was a jerk. I didn't like what she did to me. There were no more positive feelings in question. So all of this to say, like, trust is more like multifaceted than you think. You think it's just like an easy breezy thing, but it's actually a lot of a process. There's layers in trust, and it results from being consistent, being predictable, and it takes time. And that's the most frustrating thing about trust, is it takes patience and time. But one thing I want to do real quick, I'll try to make it speedy. But I created a model, and I call it the layers of trust. Now, there's many models out there, and there's great ones out there. This is just how I needed to put it together in some kind of framework after doing the research I did and thinking through my experiences. I created 3 layers of trust. I'm going to give you an overview of each one, and then I'm going to walk you through each one. So on the outside, it is the credibility and competence. So can you do your job? Can you lead your team in the right direction? The second layer is being dependable and being consistent. People know how you're going to show up. Your words and your actions match. And then there is what I call compassionate candor. It is being honest and is doing the hard stuff that you need to do as a leader, but you're doing it with caring. You're doing it with empathy. You're not doing it to be a jerk. All right. So those are the 3 layers. And what I want to walk you through is each one and talk about ways that we do break trust. And then on the flip side, you know what you can do to build trust. So on the outer layer is credibility and competence. Again, does your team trust you to lead them in the right direction? And by right direction, it means a successful direction that is aligned with the organization, right? You can build a successful team that is going to help the organization out with the bigger strategy, the bigger picture. All right, here are some ways to break trust in credibility and competence. One, it is not giving clear expectations or shifting them, which I think is at most worse. So if you have unclear, unstated, or shifting expectations, your team will not trust you. I have had expectations shifted on me, and it is infuriating. It screws with your brain, and it makes you mad, and it makes you not trust them. All right. Another one is micromanaging. So you micromanaging your team, you're not leading, you're doing their job. If you have a lack of direction or vision, if you can't say, hey team, here's where we're marching, here's where we're going, and let's figure out together how we're going to get there, but you have that North Star for them, they're not going to think you're a very effective leader, and they're not going to trust you to lead them. And then poor communication, right? I think communication is one of the most important skills of a leader. There's so many, but not communicating clearly and not being transparent. All right, so those are all trust breakers. Obviously, flip them on the other end, and you could get a trust builder. The second layer are dependable and consistent behaviors, your words and your actions matching. This is so simple, but it gets destroyed. This trust gets destroyed every day. Just match your words and your actions. It's that simple, but it's really not, right? It's simple, but not easy. So ways to break this area of trust is not doing what you say you'll do. You're not modeling what you want others to do, right? You're saying, yeah, that's really important, but you're not doing it yourself. If you overpromise and underdeliver, and then if you say you'll review something but don't. So if you listen to last week's podcast, it was with Dr. Karen Mathura, and she said it so well. She's like, don't give your team false deadlines. It is a trust breaker if you're going to say, oh yeah, give me this report by close of business on Friday, and you don't look at the damn thing for another week. Then people are not going to trust your actual deadlines, right? So match your actions to your words. And then finally in the center is compassionate candor. And this is honesty with caring, right? It is doing the difficult stuff. It is actually, let me go to the trust breakers. It's talking about others, or it's letting your team gossip. And this happens even at the high levels. I have one of our team members whose boss, who is at a high level, used to come into her one-on-ones and talk smack about her coworkers. How do you think that landed with her? She'd say, well, if that person's going to come in and talk about my coworker, of course they're going to be talking about me. Trust broken. Another way to break trust is not addressing poor performance or holding people accountable. And if you don't have the expectations in the outer circle, then it's harder to hold them accountable. I have seen leaders do it more and more, like time and time again. You just let things go. You don't document bad performance, and you just don't address it. It just ruins trust with the team. Breaking confidentiality, and then triangulating, so where you would say as a leader, you tell one of your people, hey, Sally said she's really upset about this, but you can't go tell Sally about it. I'm just going to relay the information. And so then you're caught in this weird triangle that someone said something about you, but your leader said you can't go talk to Sally about it, and it's just a mess. That happens more than you'd like to think, which is not good. So all of these things are ways to break trust with your team. And you break trust, it is really hard to repair, but it can be done. Trust is difficult to build. It takes time, it takes patience, it takes effort, and unfortunately it's very easy to destroy. So one of the things to consider is if you screw up, or when you screw up and when you break trust, which I did it as a leader, you'll do as a leader, you just admit it. You say, hey, I'm sorry that I asked you to get that report to me on Friday. I actually didn't have enough time to look at it. Next time I'll be better with deadlines. It's if you slip up and say something about another team member and you say, I shouldn't have done that. I'm really sorry. My emotions got the best of me. So it's just being vulnerable. And it's just saying, hey, I don't have all the answers. Hey, I screwed up, but I want to do better. And that builds trust like crazy with your team when you are going out there to say, I don't have all the answers. I need your help. I'm working on this. Can you give me feedback? And hey, I'm here for you. And over time, I'm going to show you that I want the best for you and I want the best for this team and this organization. So what I'd love you to do as you go into your workday, your next workday, is think about some of these trust breakers. Are you committing any of them? And if so, how can you repair the trust? And then also, what are some ways that you can continue to build trust with your team over time? Well, I hope that was helpful for you. Let me know. I'll put a contact form in the show notes so you can let me know. Did this resonate? Do you want to hear about another topic? But any feedback is welcome. As always, thank you so much for listening to the Growing Through It podcast. See you next time. Thank you for joining us on Growing Through It. I'm Jen Arnold, and it's been a pleasure sharing this time with you. If today's story sparked something in you, don't keep it to yourself. Subscribe to our podcast, leave a review, and share it with your fellow leaders. And remember, each episode comes with a nugget of wisdom that we expand on in our newsletter. So if you're eager to put these insights into action, head over to our website at growthsignals.co and sign up for exclusive content that'll give you an edge in your leadership journey. Keep growing, and I'll connect with you again soon in our next episode. Until then, take the lessons learned and lead authentically.